This is the opening ceremony. Welcome to the opening ceremony of the Pearl Harbor Memorial Parade. That deserves a round of applause, doesn't it? Woo! We got some great things accomplished today. My name is Joseph Teipel, longtime veteran local Kama'aina surfer boy entrepreneur and a longtime resident of Waikiki. Happy and pleased and proud and privileged to be part of today's ceremonies. Welcoming you to the day that we remember Pearl Harbor 72 years ago today and recognize those whose service and sacrifice provide the freedom and liberty that each of us enjoy today. Today's events will commemorate the past while celebrating the future with music, culture, and an all-American salute to our veterans and their families. We're honored, ladies and gentlemen, to have seated on the stand today each of our co-grand marshals, Pearl Harbor survivors, the Congresswoman for the great state of Hawaii, Tulsi Gabbard, as I acknowledged a moment ago, the chairman of the 2013 Pearl Harbor Memorial Parade, Mr. Joel Biggs, from the great state of Arizona, and representing the Boeing Company, one of our partners, Mr. Richard Yeager, Boeing's maritime representative in Honolulu. And Colonel Ravino has joined us also on the stage as well, representing, of course, the great Marine Corps. And at this time, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce next to the microphone, the podium of the dais, for the great state of Arizona, the proud parade chairman for the presentation of many aspects of tonight's program. Give it up for Mr. Joel Biggs, doing so much for us here today. Joel, you're next to the microphone, sir. Good to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. We appreciate Joe. It's good to be here with you today. Yet it is true, I am from Arizona, where it is all beach and no ocean. We're delighted to be here in Hawaii. We thank you so much for your hospitality. It truly is an honor and a privilege to be with you here today. It's fitting that you are surrounded by all of the beneficiaries of the service and sacrifice that each of you have made, speaking to our veterans and our survivors. We thank you, we love you, we appreciate all that you've done for us. And this is a public event recognizing you for all of those things that you've done to allow us to enjoy the freedoms and liberty that we enjoy today. So on behalf of everybody out here, we thank you, we appreciate you. At this time, I'd also like to take a minute and recognize a few of those who have made this event possible. Without the contribution of these good folks, these wonderful organizations, this would not be possible. At this time, I'd like to invite Miss Hawaii, Crystal Lee, up on the stand here with me, who will help me in the presentation. First of all, the Greatest Generation Foundation is Mr. Tim Davis here in the audience. Tim, would you join us right up here front and center? We'd love to present a plaque to you. We appreciate the efforts of Mr. Davis and the Greatest Generation Foundation, who are a wonderful, wonderful partner. They helped to bring so many of the survivors over here and to other places where they served, and we sure appreciate them. We'd also like to recognize a wonderful partner of ours who has been with us since the beginning of this event. We appreciate very much the Boeing Company. Mr. Rich Yeager, if you'd join us. We've asked Mr. Yeager to say a few words to us at the end also. We appreciate them for their commitment, particularly to military families. We'd also like to recognize Outrigger Hotels, Mildred Courtney, who will present a plaque to later today in the parade. We appreciate them as well, and for their commitment to the veterans and to military families. We'd also like to recognize the Navy League. Mr. Bob McDermott, thank you so much for your contributions to this parade. And finally, we'd like to recognize the Military Order of the Purple Hearts. You see these wonderful folks seated out here. We appreciate your service and your sacrifice. And on behalf of the Military Order of the Purple Hearts, we'd invite Mr. Tommy Tanaka to join us up here, please. Thank you so much. Another wonderful round of applause for all of our recipients, as well as for Miss Hawaii. We appreciate her. I'd also like to take just one last moment to recognize the members of the Pearl Harbor Memorial Parade Committee, Mr. Moa Mahi, Master Gunnery Sergeant Earl Hurry, Mr. Chris Meeker, Jeremy Biggs, and Bert Johnson. Thanks to each of you for all of your work in putting this together. Thanks so much and enjoy the event.
Thank you. You've been listening to Mr. Joel Biggs. What's in a name? You heard his name, Biggs. The gentleman has a big heart for this event, and he's pure passion. And we're acknowledging many individuals today, but I want to acknowledge and thank Joel Biggs, because he's one who's made a difference. Without his passion, we wouldn't be here doing what we're doing today. Let's give it up for Mr. Joel Biggs. Joel, we love you. Right on, man. Honored to be here. Thank you. What a guy. Okay, speaking of introductions, he's mentioned some of the people I'm going to be introducing right now for further remarks attendant to today's festivities. Thank you again, Joel Biggs. Next to the podium of the microphone, we're honored to invite 3 of the honored guests to provide their particular remarks and share what's on their hearts and minds at this time. First, we're delighted to hear from Mr. Richard Yeager from Boeing. He's going to be followed up by Mr. Edward Killeen right here to my left, a Pearl Harbor survivor who served on the USS Tennessee. And finally, we will be hearing from our own Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, who, by the way, is also serving as company commander with the Hawaii National Guard and has served 2 deployments to the Middle East. Mr. Yeager, the microphone's all yours. Give him a nice round of applause. Welcome, Mr. Yeager, to the microphone, please, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, sir.
I was told 13 seconds, so time me. On this day some 72 years ago, 5 minutes before 8 a.m., Japanese planes unexpectedly raced across the mountains north of Pearl Harbor to strike the Pacific Fleet ships at their anchorage. And that event occurred just a few miles from here. Some 60,000 sailors and other military personnel were unexpectedly raised from their normal Sunday morning routine, and I must stop there. I was reminded that Reveille was at 6:30. Many of them were awake. But those who are not on duty were still asleep. And they rose to defend the country against the bombs, torpedoes, and strafing machine guns that disrupted the peaceful serenity that was Hawaii that beautiful morning, much like this morning. On behalf of the 160,000 Boeing employees around the world, and some of them, I believe, are parents of the Desert Ridge High School here from Mesa, Arizona, I would be willing to bet, but I don't know that. Boeing is proud to be a sponsor of this event that recognizes the men and women that selflessly responded that Sunday morning. They demonstrated the courage and the sacrifice in the defense of their country while setting the standard for those who serve today around the world, and many of them are standing here before you right now. And on behalf of Boeing, we thank you for the privilege to be part of this event.
Thank you once again, Boeing leader, Mr. Richard Yeager. Next to the podium, ladies and gentlemen, a very special gentleman. I knew that I'd be introducing this man, but I'd never met him until coincidentally just a few minutes ago when I turned to my left to see who was kind of sitting right there to my corner. And, well, he reminded me of my own father, who is also, thank God, still alive and still spry at 91 years young. My father was in the Navy on the U.S. Chicago in Tokyo Bay on September 2nd, 1945, among other duties. And we have a Pearl Harbor survivor right here representing today the USS Tennessee. Anybody out there from or representing or know anybody in Tennessee? All right. You have 10 new friends over there, Edward. Already. Edward Killeen, Pearl Harbor survivor, USS Tennessee. Would you please join us on the microphone? Please give him a warm round of applause. Let's welcome Edward to the microphone. What a guy. I just love this guy already. 91 years young. Woo! And he's got a great sense of humor, too. Great singer?
I've been in a microphone before a few times. I've done it. I've been a professional singer and studied opera for 17 years. But I'm not here to brag about myself or talk about myself. I'm here for a much more important reason, and that's to thank all of those that have gone before us, and in particular those that have gone to their reward in heaven. And they are part of my comrades. They're my brothers. Every time I go to the out to the display of what occurred there and the locations of where all the ships were, I was in one of the highest spots on the USS Tennessee. I could look right down on the Arizona right in behind me. I was on the directors. That was a general quarters station for the Marines, and we had been out to on maneuvers for several weeks. And my top sergeant came up to me and says, "Eddie, get up there and get that place cleaned up. It's a mess." Yes, sir. I was all of 19 years of age, just out of high school, and it was a nice day, and I said to myself, I'm going to be doing this when everybody else went to out free to be on liberty, and here I'm working. I felt so sorry for myself. So I went up there and I was working, and no sooner I got up there, I could hear in the distance, I said, my God, are we having maneuvers here in Pearl Harbor? We just come back for 2 weeks of maneuvers out at sea. And then next thing I knew, here comes this plane right in front of me with the red dots on each wing, and he turns around and he's going right at me, and I was up on this, and there's no protection up there. That is an area where we use it. We direct our big guns, and so consequently we don't get much protection up there. But there's the lead was flying all over the place. I says, I've got to get out of here. I'll be mincemeat. So I got out of there. I jumped down the ladder and going down to the deck. I hit the deck, and no sooner this officer at the deck says, "Music, sound general quarters." Sir, I'm not doing. You sound general quarters. And so I went out and sounded general quarters. I just happened to be the backup guy at the time for the sailor that was out taking care of himself somewhere. And consequently, I sounded general quarters, and that is the beginning of my career as a Marine during wartime. From that point on, I went for 2 years on that ship, and we did a lot of work protecting the west coast of our United States and other parts. And consequently, I'm here today, and it's been a great honor to be here with you. And I have such high regard for all of the young people that are out here doing their very best to show what this country means to them. Believe me, we are so endowed by such great people that are doing their very best to not only for this country, but for the world. And believe me, there's something to be proud of. And I thank you very much. I was only told to say a few words.
Thank you. I was going to ask Edward, before you sit down, would you mind just, for the sake of the audience, because I got to look at the back of your unbelievable shirt, would you mind just turning around so they can see it too? There's so many awesome outfits, shirts, and jackets up here, but I just love his. Look at, take a look. Is that not cool? Marine, huh?
Well, that's what they call it.
Yeah.
They used to call us other things too.
I'm surrounded by Marines. Stage left, stage right. I thought they're the few and the proud. They're all over the place, the Marines.
I have a scrapbook, and it's got a great big mean bulldog in the front of it.
Are there only 2 Marines here? There's. All right, 10 and 1. All right. I'm sorry I asked. Okay, just kidding. Alrighty, speaking of members of the armed forces, our next speaker is not only, we're blessed to have her as our Congresswoman representing the state of Hawaii and hailing from, therefore, Hawaii and Washington, D.C., her second home now, but she's also a member of the armed forces in her own right, and she's got lots of things in her heart and mind to share with you, and then she's got the honor of doing some of the acknowledgments and introductions. So take it away. Let's give it up. Warm round of applause for Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi, welcome to the podium.
Thank you, Surfer Joe. Aloha, everybody. I gotta tell you, I feel incredibly insignificant stepping up to this microphone after Mr. Killeen and his sharing his memories and his sense of humor with all of us. Thank you very much. The only thing that justifies my privilege of addressing you is I have the honor of introducing you to all of the VIPs who are represented here on the stage who were there. Who were there or represented that day 72 years ago. It's an incredible sight sitting up here looking out amongst the crowd. We look at the marching bands, the military platoons who are representing each of our armed services. We have the Sea Cadets here, the JROTC, Young Marines, Hawaiian cultural and civic groups, as well as representatives from the Greatest Generation Foundation, the Navy League, and of course, last but absolutely not least, our co-grand marshals for the parade today, our Pearl Harbor survivors. Before I introduce them, though, I would just like to take a moment to very proudly recognize the Military Order of the Purple Heart, seated here directly in front of us. Today we have a number of veterans, many who have received the Purple Heart Medal for the wounds that they received in combat. Please, everyone, join me in a round of applause of gratitude to them for their service, their sacrifice, and for being here today. Please stand. We would like to express our gratitude by presenting each of you with a lei from our marching band drum majors. How about another round of applause? Thank you very much. At this time, on this very special day, we have the opportunity, each of us, and the privilege to recognize today's parade's co-grand marshals. Each of them are brave Pearl Harbor survivors who represent all of those brave men and women who on this day 72 years ago at 7:55 a.m. witnessed the attack that forever changed all of our world. We honor you and thank you for your courage and sacrifice. First, I'd like to recognize Edward Killeen, U.S. Marine Corps, who served on the USS Tennessee. All right, next we'd like to recognize Mr. Mal Middlesworth, U.S. Navy, who served on USS San Francisco. We have here Mr. Victor Miranda, U.S. Navy, who served at the Ford Island Naval Base. You could just wave your hand when I call your name so we can recognize you. Next, we'd like to recognize Mr. Samuel Clower, U.S. Army, Schofield Barracks. Mr. Clarence Bial, U.S. Navy, served on the USS St. Louis. Mr. Thomas Petzo, U.S. Army, Schofield Barracks. Mr. Peyton Smith, U.S. Navy, served on the USS Riggle. Mr. Michael Ganich, U.S. Navy, served on the USS Pennsylvania. Cliff Stutz. Cliff here today? Yes. Thank you very much, Cliff. We have Mr. James Seals, U.S. Marine Corps, served on the USS Pennsylvania. John Hughes, U.S. Marine Corps. Next we have Alan Bodenlos. Alan here? All right. Alexander Diga, U.S. Army Mule Skinner. Tom Berg, USS Tennessee, Fireman, First Class. Next we have Mr. James Kimmerly, served on the USS Medusa. Mike Mervosh, U.S. Marine Corps. We have Pat Duncan. Is Pat here? All right. Thank you, Pat. We also have John R. Stevens, U.S. Marine Corps. For the past 72 years, the 7th day of December has inspired visions of sacrifice as well as sorrow for our nation. On that fateful day, over 2,000 service members and civilians lost their lives at Pearl Harbor. It's a day that we'll never forget, and it's a turning point for our beloved state of Hawaii and our country. After that day, an additional 419,000 Americans would make the ultimate sacrifice for the freedom of our nation and the nations of our allies. I'd like to mention one unit in particular today that is a notable one for a few reasons: the 442's Regimental Combat Team. Go for broke. While they may not be notable or famous because of having movies made about them or being written about in many different books, they're notable because after December 7th, 1941, these gentlemen were branded as enemy aliens, along with their families. Over 1,500 Japanese Americans. They are notable because they went the distance and made the effort to convince the War Department that despite their draft status, they were worth the effort and could prove themselves, their loyalty and their patriotism to our country if they were just given the chance. And they did. To this day, they remain the most highly decorated infantry unit in the United States Army, with over 9,000 Purple Hearts, 560 Silver Stars, 4,000 Bronze Stars, and 21 Congressional Medals of Honor. There is a special person who was a part of this unit today that I want to take just a moment to remember and pay tribute to. One Medal of Honor recipient in particular, a man who rose from the ashes of prejudice and conflict, who raised his hand and volunteered to fight for this country, and knew firsthand truly what it meant to say go for broke. We honor and pay tribute to a mentor and a leader, a man who, though he is no longer with us, did so much for the state of Hawaii, for our country, and inspired people all over the world. His impact will be felt for generations to come. Senator Daniel Inouye continues to inspire each of us as we strive towards his example of what it means to be a servant leader. You are truly missed. Mahalo.
So the marching bands are going to be joining us now with the Marine Forces Pacific Band stationed at the Marine Corps Base, Kaneohe Bay, for a rousing rendition of God Bless America. That was the massed band performance of God Bless America, led by the Marine Band and Gunnery Sergeant Daniel Sullivan. Let him know you appreciate him one more time, can you please? Thank you. Indeed, indeed. God bless America and Hawaii, each one of you richly, and God save the Queen. Now, why do I say that? Newsflash, this just in. Mr. Joel Biggs informs me that all the way from halfway around the world to honor you Pearl Harbor survivors, and the purpose for today, we have a very special couple of guests that were not part of my normal program. I didn't know they were here until just now, but I would like us to recognize really the power of the commemoration ceremony that we're doing today, and the appeal of the greatest generation, and the camaraderie that will never die in this life, in the life beyond, and in legacy, because we have Mr. Dennis Gilbert here today and his bride. Would you two stand to be recognized? They served in World War II in the theater for God, Queen, and Country for the great jolly old England. Can you welcome them, please? Traveling halfway around the world to be with us here today, Dennis Gilbert and his bride. Well, top of the evening to you. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. That is the power and the appeal of the Pearl Harbor Parade, which you all make possible here today. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for participating in the opening ceremony. However, the core of the program is just about to get underway as Waikiki turns their entire attention on the upcoming Pearl Harbor Memorial Parade. My name is Joe Teipel. Thank you so much for joining us. Otherwise, we're going to see you down on King Kalakaua Avenue as the parade kicks off. It's going to be a wonderful evening. And then we've got, of course, our awards ceremony happening at the end of the parade at the other end of Waikiki, a little after dark at Queen Kapiolani Park. Nice round of applause for the Pearl Harbor Memorial Parade. God bless you all. And a hui ho. We'll see you at Parade Headquarters, Royal Hawaiian Center. Till then. Edward Killeen, Pearl Harbor survivor, USS Tennessee. Would you please join us on the microphone? Please give him a warm round of applause. Let's welcome Edward to the microphone. What a guy. I just love this guy already. 91 years young. Woo! And he's got a great sense of humor, too. Great singer?
I've been in a microphone before a few times. I've done it. I've been a professional singer and studied opera for 17 years. But I'm not here to brag about myself or talk about myself. I'm here for a much more important reason, and that's to thank all of those that have gone before us, and in particular those that have gone to their reward in heaven. And they are part of my comrades. They're my brothers. Every time I go to the out to the display of what occurred there and the locations of where all the ships were, I was in one of the highest spots on the USS Tennessee. I could look right down on the Arizona right in behind me. I was on the directors. That was a general quarters station for the Marines, and we had been out to on maneuvers for several weeks. And my top sergeant came up to me and says, "Eddie, get up there and get that place cleaned up. It's a mess." Yes, sir. I was all of 19 years of age, just out of high school. And it was a nice day, and I said to myself, I'm going to be doing this when everybody else went to out free to be on liberty, and here I'm working. I felt so sorry for myself. So I went up there and I was working, and no sooner I got up there, I could hear in the distance, I said, my God, are we having maneuvers here in Pearl Harbor? We just come back for 2 weeks of maneuvers out at sea. And then next thing I knew, here comes this plane right in front of me with the red dots on each wing, and he turns around and he's going right at me. And I was up on this, and there's no protection up there. That is an area where we use it. We direct our big guns. And so consequently, we don't get much protection up there, but there's the lead was flying all over the place. I said, I've got to get out of here. I'll be minced meat. So I got out of there. I jumped down the ladder and going down to the deck. I hit the deck, and no sooner this officer of the deck says, "Music, sound general quarters." Sir, I'm not enjoying. You sound general quarters. And so I went out and sounded general quarters. I just happened to be the backup guy at the time for the sailor that was out taking care of himself somewhere. And consequently, I sounded general quarters. And that is the beginning of my career as a Marine during wartime. From that point on, I went for 2 years on that ship, and we did a lot of work protecting the west coast of our United States and other parts. And consequently, I'm here today, and it's been a great honor to be here with you. And I have such high regard for all of the young people that are out here doing their very best to show what this country means to them. Believe me, we are so endowed by such great people that are doing their very best to not only for this country, but for the world. And believe me, there's something to be proud of. And I thank you very much. I was only told to say a few words.